Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Stroud Show. I was checking out Twitter last night. I don't know if you guys have seen it, and actually I don't know when you're listening to this podcast, but let me say it this way. I was watching Twitter. I was on Twitter recently, learning about some new developments. They're always trying new things, which is one reason what I like about them so much. Well, they have this new tool that I blogged about on my blog, The Recruiter's Lounge, about some sort of lead generation tool where you can hit a button inside of the tweet, and it serves as a sort of call to action. And when I saw it, I was immediately excited about it because I said, imagine someone could post a job on Twitter. Someone could apply for that job on Twitter without leaving Twitter. How cool would that be if only someone would do that? And I said, this is only a matter of time, and lo and behold, someone had actually done it. And I was amazed at how fast they were able to react to this change in Twitter. And by the good fortunes, we managed to connect with one another, and I have him on the line with me now, and I wanted to introduce him to you guys and about his rich history with the Internet. His name is John Dennehy from Zartis. John, how are you?
I'm good, Jim. Thanks very much for having me on the show.
And no, my pleasure, my pleasure. Before we get into Twitter, I understand you are well versed with the Internet and the gaming industry specifically.
Yeah, I've been working on the Internet since about 1995. So the most recent thing that I was working on was a games company called Upstart Games. And in 2002, we saw the potential for games on mobile phones, and myself and two co-founders set up a company in Dublin and Tokyo, and we licensed content for popular games from a Japanese games company called Konami. So some of your listeners might remember a game called Frogger, where a little frog would hop across the road and hop across the river. We licensed that game from Konami in 2002, and we released it in the US and Europe, and it was sold on Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, all the major Tier 1 opcos, and it was a huge success. It was like a top 5 selling game on a lot of the US carriers. And then we started developing games for companies like the Walt Disney Internet Group and Sony Pictures. And we also took some games from the US and actually distributed them in Japan. So we sold the company in 2006, and I started looking at HR and recruitment software around 2008, 2009. And I set up a company called Zartis.com. Zartis is basically an applicant tracking system that's sold as a SaaS-based solution, but we really wanted to target the change and the disruption and the opportunities caused by that in recruitment. So the key areas for me to look at was social media and mobile. So we've zoomed in on those two areas, and you mentioned the Twitter application earlier. That's the latest thing that we've released. I think we're the first company in the world to provide the ability for candidates to see a job in a tweet and to apply directly for the job from their mobile without ever leaving Twitter.
That was very fast. I mean, I just read about it literally yesterday. Did you have advance notice of this new Twitter implementation?
We had absolutely no advance warning of it. So we've been working on a solution for a couple of weeks, trying to overcome we knew that we could reach people on Twitter, so we knew that if we used promoted tweets, we could run pay-per-click campaigns based on particular keywords to attract the attention of the right type of candidate. So we knew we could get to the candidate. We knew we could get the candidate to click on the role, but we saw a massive fall-off when they were taken from Twitter and into any other kind of applicant tracking system or any other kind of application process. So even though we could reach, we'd solve the discovery part, we couldn't fix the conversion element. And that's something we'd really been struggling with, and we were trying a lot of different options, and we were finding it really difficult. So yesterday at 5 o'clock Irish time, GMT, Twitter sent us an email saying that this new feature called a lead generation card was available. So we had been testing with a lot of their different cards and playing with the technology for a while. Twitter are a client of ours. We provide recruitment marketing services for a lot of companies like Twitter. But we were playing with the cards, and basically then yesterday at 5 o'clock we saw this new lead generation card And there was a eureka moment at 5 o'clock yesterday that said, this is perfect to solve the conversion element of what we're working on. So we had met a client the day before, a company called Demonware, who are actually a games company. They make middleware for a lot of very popular online games. They've about 160 staff, and they were trying to hire 40 or 50 new staff. But most of these folks were Python developers or Hadoop, people with Hadoop or MySQL experience, so very deep technical people, and they're hard to find. So we've been discussing with them new and novel ways that they could maybe reach out to those kind of candidates. So when we saw Twitter's announcement yesterday at 5 o'clock, I immediately contacted Demonware, the client. They loved the idea and they said, yeah, go for it, let's try it. So we turned the feature live at 9 o'clock last night. And this morning we had about 40 applicants for the job.
Wow. Wow. So that is wow. Okay. So with this wow. So you converted really quickly. I mean, I guess, is it because that it's a no-brainer for users of Twitter? They just see it and they click the button and Twitter uses their email address that they found on Twitter with. We don't have to do anything.
That's definitely part of it, Jim, but we had an unfair advantage in that what we did got a lot of publicity. So The Next Web, which is a tech blog that's read by about 7 million people a month, they covered what we did, which brought an awful lot of people to look at the tweet. Their readership are largely technologists and developers. So we had an unfair advantage with that specific job in that we got great coverage, which drove a lot of traffic, which converted. And that's not something, you can repeat. Like, you're not going to get covered in The Next Web with every job you put up, right? But that's not really the issue, because we use promoted tweets. So we can find the candidates and we can serve them the job ad based on keywords that they interact with. So going forward, we can repeat what we did and we can drive more candidates to the application. And we've already seen the data points that are really interesting. For example, 80% of all engagement on the ad came from mobile. So if we were directing that traffic into a regular applicant tracking system like Tele or other old systems like that, all of that traffic would have been lost because they can't convert, they can't upload a CV from an iPhone, right? So we saw, like, the data showing us 80% of all engagement on Twitter for the ad was from mobile. And that was an amazing thing for us to see it was that high. The other thing that we found really interesting was that the average engagement rate was 2.2%. So, for every 100 people or every 1,000 people that saw the ad, 22 people actually engaged with it, which is a very high percentage. I mean, in other pay-per-click campaigns, we'd see an average of about 0.5% engagement.
Wow. So this seems like the way to go. Do you think this is a something that will be widely adopted as I do, or do you see this as potentially a fad, or what do you think? Do you think this will become a standard practice for a lot of HR people placing jobs, or just ads in general?
I don't think it's a fad. I think that recruitment advertising has always followed the target audience, and if the target audience is spending a lot of their time on Twitter, then surely in one shape or form or another, the recruitment advertising will follow that audience and will end up on Twitter. So I think, personally, there's a great revenue line for Twitter and recruitment advertising. So I don't think it's a fad. I think it's, it might change, or, it mightn't be exactly as it is today, but I think there will be recruitment advertising in one shape or form or another on Twitter if that's where hundreds of millions of professionals are actually consuming their content.
Cool. Let's walk me through one aspect of this. Now, let's say I'm a user. I see the tweet. I'm interested in applying for the role. I see in the tweet where I can hit a button to apply. So I hit that button, and because my email address is tied to my Twitter account, then the company emails me more information about this job. Is that how that works?
Yeah, it could work in a number of ways. At the most basic level, what it does is it alerts the recruiter to your signal of intent. So you're presenting yourself as a candidate capable of fulfilling the role that's advertised. The recruiter now has your interest, your attention. They have a signal of intent that you want to work with the company. And most importantly, they have your name, your email address, and your Twitter handle. So if you give a good recruiter those three things, that recruiter will find out a lot about the candidate very quickly by looking at the digital footprint a candidate has left in different parts of the internet, right? And, you know, that's what recruiters are doing all the time. They're experts at it. They're very good at that. That's the most basic kind of level that you could do. And then, you know, a recruiter can email the candidate thanking them or whatever it is. But it starts the conversation. We're not saying that, you know, somebody clicks on this and they get hired immediately, right? I mean, that's the start of the process. And there's human expertise obviously required after that. We could, however, build some programmatic solutions that would do some interesting stuff, like maybe grab the bio from the Twitter account and present that back to the recruiter to make their job a bit easier. So there's absolutely, this huge need for professional recruiters to work with the data that we've given them. But what we're doing is opening the door there a little bit. And that's especially important in a world where there's a global shortage of professional talent. It's that introduction, it's that conversation start is the important part.
Wow, so if I were advising job seekers going forward, if this was becoming a standard practice, which I think it will, just based on the success you've had that quickly, although you did have some things in your favor, like being featured in the popular tech blog, I would tell job seekers, okay, in your Twitter bio, have a link to your LinkedIn profile as well, so that when they see an ad like yours, they click the button, the information that the company receives would be my name and email address, my intent to know more information about the opportunity, and it also would add with the button my profile information, so they can see a link to my LinkedIn profile inside of my Twitter profile, which will help them on their end as well know more about me when they engage me to talk to me about the job. So I can see that happening well.
I think that's a very interesting use case, and I think it's a great insight. It'd be interesting to see if that happens. I think it's a good idea, though.
I could also see this as a way for companies to promote their culture or to passively recruit, in that, say a company has a white paper, and I mentioned this in my blog post, but say a company has a white paper on some sort of industry topic, and they could say, we have this great new white paper on how to build the best gadget or something. Click here and we'll email it to you. And then when the person clicks that button and they receive the white paper, inside the white paper is an ad saying, you know, check out our career site as well.
I think that's another great use case, Tim. And there's a lot of people talking about, you know, building talent pools. And, you know, building talent pools, in my view of it, and maybe other people feel differently, but it's basically gathering the details of people who are interested in working for your company, right? So this is a perfect way to do that. And as you suggest, if you give something back to that community, like a white paper or some kind of particular insight that's of value to them, and you can engage with them, that's a fantastic way to build that talent pool. And especially with passive candidates, you know, most people, most professionals that companies want to hire may not have a CV with them. To be able to immediately get in touch with the company and communicate their interest in working for the company, that's a really powerful thing.
How expensive is it to try this out? So if a company, they see what you've done, and they say, you know what, we want to try this out. Is it like the Google AdWords system where you sort of set up a budget and you sort of go from there? Or is this more of a more expensive thing to implement? I mean, what are the costs involved in doing it?
Well, we tested on the promoted tweet yesterday, and we spent about $100, right? So it wasn't a lot of money that we spent on it, and we got a lot of leads for that $100. You know, I suspect that we got a false positive, right? Because everything was in our favor yesterday. We were one of the first ones to do it, and there's a novelty factor. So all of those things were in our favor. What the cost per click is going to be over time, I think will vary, and I think it will probably increase, unfortunately, as more people start targeting professional people in this manner, and once more recruiters figure out how to do it. But in essence, it does work very like Google AdWords. I mean, you essentially go in, you select, well, what we prefer to do is we target keywords, and we select keywords that candidates might use or interact with in their timeline. So, for example, if we're searching for a developer, you can find very unique keywords that only developers would ever interact with. You might have some crossover. If you you target Python, for example, you might get a snake lover, okay? But the majority of the people you get are going to be the right type of category, and you can narrow down by getting very unique keywords, especially for developers. So you select that, you pick your keywords, then you can target by geography, so you can select one or more countries of your choice. You can select by device type, so you can actually select all mobile or all desktop or mobile and desktop, or you can even drill down to Android or iOS or BlackBerry devices. You can also segment by gender, which for recruitment might not be the right thing to do. And then you set your campaign budget, your overall campaign budget, and you select your daily campaign budget. And then there's some advanced options. You can accelerate the spend to really, drive the message out at an accelerated pace, or you can set it to normal. And then you kind of click go, and that's it. It's a really good system. The guys at Twitter have done a fantastic job. They've been a fantastic company to work with. And, yeah, we're delighted with it.
Okay. As I think about it, it looks like this is a low-cost, high-reward option, although that low cost will go up as more people do this, I'm sure.
I think so. And there's also a big part of it, I think, is the employer branding, is, getting that employer branding right. I think if Twitter tomorrow is flooded with, every single dollar recruitment budget in the world go into it, it's not going to be great, right? I think that the companies that use this well will be the companies that can actually provide something of value, like you said at the start, like a white paper or something that, communicates their brand value or gives something to the community. I think that the companies who get that right will do really well out of it long term. And a big part of this is around the employer branding as opposed to just the job advertising.
Sure. Wow. I think this is something that will catch on very quickly. And thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your knowledge with my audience. If someone wanted to get in contact with you to discuss this further and to learn more about Zartus and other things that you offer, how can they get in contact with you?
Our website is zartus.com. That's Z for zebra, A for alpha, R for Romeo, T for tango, I for India, and S for sugar, zartus.com. And my email address is john, John, @zartus.com. And I'd be delighted to hear from any of your listeners.
Very cool. Well, thank you again, sir, for being on the Jim Stroud Show.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.